I'd like to call to order the 2:30 p.m. workshop for the City of Murrieta. Before we continue to business, I want to note that tonight's meeting will consist of a 2:30 p.m. workshop, which we are doing right now, followed by a closed session at 4:45, and then we'll return to our regular session at 6 p.m. Since the workshop begins early in the day, we wanted to provide opportunity for those watching to provide public comments via Facebook. So public comments via Facebook will only be accepted for the items of the workshop. So Madam City Clerk, could we please do roll call for a determination of a quorum?
Councilmember Warren.
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Here.
Mayor DeForest.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present.
Thank you so much, Madam City Clerk. If you don't mind, could we take the items of the workshop out of order? First, we'll hear workshop item number 2, followed by workshop item number 1. All right, so moving on to workshop item number 2, budget workshop. And I see everyone in their place.
And I think that goes to me.
That goes to you. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. So today, we're very excited to be presenting to you a balanced fiscal year 2023-24, $168 million, and fiscal year 2024-25, $178 million budget. This budget was built over many months, and the design is to align our resources to support not only the City Council's goals and objectives, but also to fund all of the city's programs and services. In summary, and I'm going to steal their thunder just a little bit, the proposed budget includes increasing personnel to support and improve levels of service to the community and support ongoing operating expenses. One of the things I think that you will be very happy to hear about is we're very proud to say that we're able to increase our operating reserves to 30% in all of our budgets. So the council has a policy of 25%, so we're happy to be able to present. I know it's been a long time goal to get to the 30%. The purpose of this workshop is to provide the public with an opportunity for questions, comments, and to provide feedback. So before I hand it over, I'd like to thank Javier, Jennifer, and her budget team, all of the directors who worked very hard to be cooperative and come up with the personnel suggestions, and really all of the staff. I think most city staff everywhere has something to do with working on the budget. So I just want to thank all of them. I think it's an excellent budget. I hope you think so too. So with that, I will hand it over to Finance.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, city staff, and members of the public. I am Javier Carcamo. I'm the Director of Finance. And along with me is our Finance Manager, Jennifer Terry. And also, shortly, our Director of Administrative Services, Diego Chavez, will be joining us to provide a quick update on the risk management program. As shared with you, the workshop is designed to discuss the proposed operating budget for the next 2 years. The budget development process consists of 3 main phases. First is the budget development. Second is the budget review, which the workshop is part of that process. And third is subsequently will be budget adoption. Let's see, so the budget kickoff and preparation started back in December of last year. So it's been approximately 4 or 5 months since we have been working collectively building a budget. So preparing a budget of this magnitude really requires contributions and collaboration from all city departments. And as shared by our city manager, it has been a team effort, and departments are part of this process. Finance takes the lead in coordinating and preparing the budget, including short-term and long-term forecasts of the city's revenues and other financing sources. Revenue estimates are prepared through an objective analytical process based on a year-to-date trends and along with the 3 years of prior data. In all instances, the city provides reasonable revenue projections to prevent prevent undue or unbalanced reliance on certain revenues, and ensures that the ability to provide ongoing services. Among other factors, including the forecast, are the outlooks of the national, state, and local economy, so we take that into consideration as well. Finance staff works very closely with the city's sales tax consultant, HDL, to project our budget that also factors in changes that we know that may happen in the future with our businesses. So, for instance, a new hotel, for instance, or new retail, big box retailer that we know that it might come to our city, we take that into consideration as well. Finance also forecasts personnel costs, internal service charges, debt service, and operating transfers. City department's budget requests primarily focus on goods and services within their operations and maintenance budget, and the capital outlay, also known as one-time expenditures. Finance is expected to be fiscally responsible within the city's, with the city's financial resources. Moreover, finance is expected to continuously collaborate with departments to identify efficiencies and methods to significantly improve services and in other economic scales. Finance staff does a thorough review of the department's budget request to identify significant budgetary changes from one year to the other. And we also request additional information or justification as needed to understand what the request is about. The proposed budget is then presented to our city manager's office to provide an overview of each department's request. So the proposed biannual budget represents the momentum of our local economy and a conservative forecast for the next 2 years. As we share with you, this workshop provides the opportunity for questions and also to receive direction from City Council. This is part of our budget review phase with the intent to make the necessary changes before we come back to you for adoption. And with that being said, we'll turn over the rest of the presentation to our finance manager, Jennifer Terry.
Thank you, Javier. So a few areas we'll be talking about today. The proposed biannual budget for fiscal years 23-24 and 24-25, operating and sustainability reserves, our current levels and our proposed levels, budgetary needs in the short run and long run, and risk management fund update. And that will be provided by our Administrative Services Director, Diego Chavez, and with questions answered by Beth Lyons, the Executive Director of PERMA. Before I start on this page, the draft budget books that you have in front of you are prepared through our new software, ClearGov. It provides an online portal for our budget, which has already been posted to our website. So we'll share the link. You'll be able to see all of the funds as opposed to just what's in the book. And as we finalize the budget, there will be additional sections added that weren't prepared at this time. So we'll share that link with you after the workshop. Just going over a couple highlights of for budget events. Third quarter budget update is scheduled for the May 16th council meeting. We'll provide some budget updates during that. We'll provide budget adjustment proposals during that meeting, and then the biannual budget is for 2 fiscal years. A workshop today, and then budget adoption will be June 6th. Some of the budget objectives reflect the community's priorities, which you'll see in the budget. Public safety is a huge facet of that. Providing historical data and establishing realistic revenues and expenditures. Starting with personnel changes, the city manager worked with the executive team and worked on a 5-year staffing plan, which encompassed current year, this proposed biannual budget, and the subsequent one. In the current year, 7.5 full-time equivalent positions were implemented during mid-year. This year, this slide does accidentally omit one position, so there's 31 positions spread across both fiscal years. The position not included on here is reinstatement of our GIS technician. It was repurposed into another position a few years ago, but we're bringing that back. And then the next fiscal year, or next biannual budget will include 33.5 positions, which are not reflected here. As the city manager mentioned, we do have a balanced budget. This slide represents our current budget for comparison, along with what we're proposing as of today with the fiscal year 24 proposed budget and fiscal year 25 budget. I do want to point out that the agenda report had older data, and the presentation and your budget books match, reflect the same information. We have been revising the budget almost on a daily basis. So the agenda report was from a moment in time, and we have continued to refine the budget. The first year of revenues include, or a total $183 million, with expenditures of $168 million, leaving a surplus of $14.7 million. The second year, $191 million, with expenditures of $177 million, leaving a surplus of $13.2. Now, this is citywide and does include contributions or revenue collections from our DIF funds and other capital improvement funds that we collect revenue for gas tax, Measure A, and so on. Those types of revenues are budgeted in our operating budget, but the expenses are on the capital improvement side. So that's where you see the large contribution to unassigned fund balance. This slide is a grouping of our revenue collections, or I'm sorry, our revenue projections. Sales tax being the largest one. Property tax comes in second. Charges for services are in our third highest category. Personnel costs, the bulk of our citywide budget comes from personnel and operations and maintenance. Personnel is projected at $88 million the first year, $91 million the second year. Those estimates do include the 31 proposed positions that I mentioned at the beginning. The budget by department, this includes both Measure T and general fund. And you'll see police has the highest in our departments. They do have significantly more employees than the fire department, but they do lead with our second highest department. And then admin, just so you know, is a combined effort between the city manager's office, city clerk, finance, city attorney, city council, and administrative services. Otherwise, the slide would just be way too busy. Moving on to general fund, the proposed general fund budget is $69.6 million in revenue and $69.6 million in expenditures for the first year. We're reflecting at this moment in time a $10,000 surplus to unassigned fund balance. The second year is $72.5 million in revenue and $72.2 million in expenditure. So we have a little bit more contributing to unassigned fund balance. The personnel costs include 7 new positions in the first year and 8 positions in the second year. The largest swings in the revenue include sales tax. We are aligning our proposed budget with the estimates provided from our sales tax consultant, HDL, and they're projecting strong sales tax into 24-25. They do account for new development that we have made them aware of that's coming online. Transient occupancy tax is also a significant increase at 79% the first year and 40% the second year. The first year includes the Murrieta Hot Springs Resort coming online. So we anticipate a strong transient occupancy tax coming from that development. The second year is an additional hotel coming online. And then property transfer tax, we're showing a decrease in year 1 and then leveling off in year 2. That's due to stabilizing of the home prices and fewer home sales due to the current interest rate. Current interest rates. Proposed general fund revenue. This slide just shows where our revenue comes from the general fund. Sales tax at 40%, property tax at 29%. Other taxes include franchise, transient occupancy tax, and business license. And the miscellaneous includes fines, interest, intergovernmental revenue, and some smaller revenues as well. Moving on to Measure T, we are proposing to increase Measure T sales tax to $30.5 million in year 1 and almost $31.5 in year 2. Again, these estimates are in line with our sales tax consultant's projections and are consistent with what we are seeing coming in through the receipts on a monthly basis. The personnel includes 5 positions in year 1 and another 5 positions in year 2. The contribution to unassigned fund balance in year 1 is $4.6 million, and year 2, almost $4.7 million. The Measure T budget by department. This slide includes transfers in, so the Measure T helps to supplement fire, CSD, our Community Services District, and our library. So you'll see fire has the most significant, primarily due to that transfer in. Police with the highest, or the second highest, and Community Services District coming in third. Just to point out, library in year 1 is 1%, and then it jumps to 4% in year 2. That's because of the increased transfer in for the operating transfer. This slide shows the remaining 3 districts that we always report on: Fire District, Community Services District, and Library. You'll see that these 3 districts are balanced as a result of the transfers in from Measure T. Fire has a $7.1 million transfer in to balance their budget. Community Services District has almost $2.7 million, and year 1, the library has $92,000. The remaining funds are shown in the 4th column, and the total column does include general fund and Measure T, unless in case somebody's adding up those numbers and they don't sum up. You'll have to add Measure T and a general fund to those to get to that 183 million in revenue. Year two is much the same. Transfers increased slightly for the fire district and community services district, but the library district jumps to $875,000, and that's because that fund has expended all of their unassigned reserves at that point. We're projecting, so that brings their contribution close to $1 million, and that's what it will remain at going forward. We have one-time, we have a slide for one-time and significant expenditures. I won't go over all of them, but wanted to point out a couple. The city clerk's office is hoping to purchase a digital notice board so they can digitally notice the agendas for all of the council and other commission meetings. On a biannual basis and every other year basis, general elections occur, so we have that budgeted. Police does a vehicle replacement on an annual basis. They do 8 or 10 plus 1. I don't see you. 8 or 10 plus 1? 10? 10 vehicles and 1 motorcycle a year. That amount to cover that quantity of vehicles has increased due to the current cost of vehicles. That's all for that one. And the second year, I wanted to highlight that the PSEC, that's our radio system that we connect to for the county. We were one of the first agencies to join the county, and when we joined the PSEC system, we were granted lower rates. Those grandfathered rates are sunsetting in fiscal year 25, and we will start incurring the full cost as with all of the other agencies that are on the PSEC system. So that increase comes up to $575,000. So we'll have that on an annual basis. The estimated unassigned fund balance for the 5 major funds that we report on: General Fund, Measure T, Fire District, CSD, and Library. We're starting with a proposed unassigned fund balance of $41.2 million. The first year, we're drawing down to $8.7 million. That significant drop comes from the transfers to reserves, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. The other columns are the proposed revenues, transfers in, expenditures, and transfers out. The first year includes the proposed capital improvement budget that RN will be discussing after this presentation, which is almost $3.3 million. We don't have anything earmarked for second year because we only do an annual CIP, so there's nothing reflected there. The reserves, operating and sustainability reserves, we start with a $45.2 million balance. We're transferring $18.8 million from the general fund and $14.2 million from Measure T, which will give us a balance of $78.4 million. One thing to point out here that we are increasing, as the city manager mentioned earlier, the operating reserves to 30%. General fund will cover its own increase to 30%, and Measure T will contribute to bring its own fund as well as the fire and community services districts and library. So the $18 million and $14 million respectively, we have a breakdown of where that funding or where those monies are going to in the reserve. So general fund has $3.8 million to increase its reserve fund to 30%, and Measure T, $3.3 million. $45,000 going to economic contingency reserve, and that will round out that fund or that reserve balance to $7.1 million. We're setting $6 million aside for future labor contract negotiations, which we're currently underway with 4 of the public safety groups. And pension rate stabilization. We currently have $3 million in that reserve for the 115 trust, which we are currently forming. And once that trust is formed, we will transfer the $3 million into that account, and we're proposing to transfer $2 million each year. The first year will come from general fund, and the second year from Measure T. And then the OPEB trust, that's other post-employment benefits. We have already formed that trust and have about $5 million in that account. We're proposing to increase or to start contributing $1 million on an annual basis into that account. And our operating and, continue the operating and sustainability reserves. The first column is missing the header, so that's the general fund component, and the second column is Measure T. I won't read off every single item, but we are setting monies aside for capital improvements and future fleet purchases for fire and PD, and replenishing the facility reserves for fire and CSD because they have utilized most of their balances in the current year, and they continue to have needs going forward. So this totals are $18.8 million for general fund and $14.2 for Measure T. The second year, we're maintaining the operating reserves at 30% of $817,000 from the general fund and $753,000 from Measure T. As the budgets increase, so is the need to maintain that operating reserve. So every year we'll have to contribute to maintain that 30%. So at the end of the second year, we're proposing almost $78 million in our reserves. Budgetary needs, we talked about the short run and what we're setting aside in our reserve balances. These are more long-term budgetary needs, which include expansion at City Hall. Even though we just did the cubicle reconfiguration, we were able to get a couple handfuls of new cubicles, but that's still not enough for the 71 positions that are coming online between this budget cycle and next budget cycle. Facility expansion at the police station. Their dispatch center is, they're outgrowing their space, and so they'll need a larger location. Public Works Operation Yard. Public Works Yard Operations Center. I said that backwards. Fire station, a permanent structure for Fire Station 5 and Fire Station 6 planning development, as well as a regional training center and the Keller Road interchange. These costs our initial estimates come in at $67.5 million. These are things that we cannot pay for as we construct them. So we're proposing to look at bonding so we can construct these items. This slide is a table from our underwriting consultant who we worked with on a recent bond refunding. If we were to do on the bottom row up to $75 million for a 20-year repayment, we're looking at a $6 million annual debt service payment, or if we were to push it out to 30 years, approximately $5 million a year to cover, to construct those items. Now, we couldn't do that all at one time, but we do have some capacity to start chipping away at those longer-term needs. And finally, the risk management fund, as I mentioned, Diego will come up and elaborate on this, but our risk management fund has a negative fund balance, and we established a catch-up provision in fiscal year 2021, where we would collect approximately $500,000 each year in excess of what the expenses were. And we've, each year we have set aside monies to chip away at that. But we still have to continue that effort until the negative fund balance is made whole. To further complicate the issue, our risk insurance company, Public Entity Risk Management Authority, or PIRMA, last year they identified that the pool had payments that exceeded how much they collected in years 15, 16 through 2021, and each agency was identified of having a deficit. Our deficit was $732,000. We opted for a 7-year repayment plan, and we make annual payments of approximately $105,000 every year to pay that shortfall back. We paid the first one last year, and our second payment is due this July. So that is, we still have 5 years left of that to pay back. I'll invite Diego now. That concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'll turn it over to Diego.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. We wanted to spend a few minutes this afternoon and highlight the risk management programs. As mentioned earlier, the executive director for PIRMA, the Public Entity Risk Management Authority, which is the city's risk-sharing pool, Beth Lyons is in the audience joining us today to answer any questions that City Council may have. But we're anticipating or estimating higher than normal costs during this renewal cycle. And so again, we wanted to just spend a few minutes to highlight the risk management fund. So as a quick reminder, the city participates in the insurance programs that you see on the screen. Some of them are common to you, like general liability, workers' compensation, property programs. Some of the less common programs are employment practices, so that provides coverage for discrimination and harassment related claims. The Deadly Weapons Response Program is a newer program that has evolved out of active shooter situations. So if there's ever a situation where someone brandishes a weapon on city property, there's actually coverage under the Deadly Weapons Response Program to provide coverage for anything from counseling to funeral services. The cyber program, we unfortunately became very familiar with that line of coverage or that program last year. But again, it provides great services related to cyber incidents. And then the last program that we participate with under PIRMA is the crime program. And so that would be for employee theft, forgery, those types of claims. So the risk sharing pool is organized under a joint powers authority agreement, and it's not a private entity, it's a public entity, it's governed by members, and so the city of Murrieta has Marla Martinez, our senior analyst in the risk management divisions. She's on the board of directors. I serve as an alternate member on the board of directors for PERMA. And the way it's structured, it's not a fully insured, off-the-shelf, commercially purchased program. And so the way it's structured is the city of Murrieta has its own level of self-insured retention. And so we take on some of that initial risk internally. The pool itself takes on another layer of self-insured retention. And then we get excess layers of coverage through other risk pools, through reinsurance, and then through commercial avenues. Next slide, please. And so, as I mentioned, we are experiencing a higher than normal renewal. So we renew all of those programs that I mentioned each July. Right now, the estimated July increase across all those programs is approximately 27%, which equates to about $1 million increase across all of those programs. We'll get final numbers in June. And I know every time that PERMA has provided us a new estimate, we're working closely with finance to fine tune our numbers. And so what we listed here is some of the items that are contributing to this this renewal cycle or this increased cost. Some of them have to do with our own internal factors, and so claims experience is a big one. You know, having a cyber claim, as an example, counts against us in our experience. Having workplace injuries and having liability claims, those all get factored into our renewal process. We've had significant increases in the value of our property and our vehicles. We recently had an appraisal done a few months ago, and we discovered that we were missing some of our fire stations. They were not being covered, and so during this renewal cycle, we added those fire stations, and so that significantly increased our value. Part of that was because the fire department was covered under a separate risk pool, and that got switched over recently under the PERMA umbrellas. And so we're glad that we discovered that, and so now those will be trued up. As mentioned earlier, we keep growing in terms of staff, and payroll is an exposure when calculating our contributions each year. And so the higher the payroll, the more exposure that we have, and the higher the renewal rates are going to be. And as I mentioned earlier, the fire department was added in 21-22. PERMA, the risk pool itself, also has factors that contribute to the increased contribution, the experience that the pool has. So not only the city of Murrieta, but there's 31 other agencies that participate in this risk pool. So their experience also contributes to our renewals. There's been changes in the funding policy, just like with CalPERS and how they have actuarial studies to try to project how much your future obligations are going to be. we kind of go through the same process at the risk pool level and trying to identify what our funding is going to be in future years. Confidence levels is a factor of calculating contributions, and the PERMA, the risk pool, has decided to increase our confidence level, so the ability to pay claims in any given year, and so that's impacting our renewals. The last category, we're definitely going through an extremely hard market right now in terms of renewals, and you may be experiencing that as well with your property insurance. It's just difficult times, not only with risk pools, but with across the country with all insured programs. And so insurance carriers, what we've noticed, have reduced capacity. So to manage their exposure, what they're doing is they're limiting the number, the amount of insurance that they provide, and sometimes even exiting the marketplace altogether. We're seeing more frequency in claims and higher severity in claims. And so what used to be a $2 to $5 million claim, now it's not uncommon to see, $5, $10, $15 million verdict with some of the claims that, again, not necessarily are happening with our pool, but that are being seen across California and across the country. Natural catastrophes, hurricanes, wildfires, flooding, all of those claims are being paid out, and so they certainly have an impact on the renewals. For workers' compensation, the cost of medical care continues to increase, and we also see that in California in particular, presumptions have been expanded. COVID-19 is a recent example of how that is how that was added as a presumption, and so now we're seeing more workers' comp activity with that particular category. And then public entities are considered to be deep pockets, and so we're kind of always going to have that target going against us. And so everything from, like I said, trip and fall, excessive use of force, all of these types of claims, we're seeing an increased activity in those regards. And so we are very mindful of the hard market and the increased costs in the risk management programs. We definitely are working hard with each department to stay on top and stay up to date on inspections, maintenance, and training. We're going to be considering implementing new maintenance programs and risk controls as we see fit and as the city continues to age. A proactive sidewalk maintenance program may be something that we consider in future years. We definitely want to promote safety. At the pool level, we can consider increasing deductible amounts and retaining more of that self-insured retention as a way to offset the annual contributions. Defending claims that are defensible is important. Keeping track of legislative efforts and engaging in activity as we see fit. And then communicating industry trends with our employees, with our department heads, and implementing best practices is also important. PERMA recently put together a training specifically for police chiefs in the risk pool, and the topic was on excessive use of force, and that's a perfect example of monitoring the industry and providing that communication with the members and trying to share best practices amongst ourselves. So again, we just thought it was important that we highlight the risk management programs and what's happening in that space. And Beth and myself are available for any questions.
Thank you, Diego, for sharing the risk management program and the status of it. And with that, and before we turn it over to you, council members, I just want to point out, one quick comment about our budget. So 2 comments. One is we have a great budget that we have put together. We are accomplishing a lot of things within the next 2 years in terms to personnel, ongoing operations, keeping service, and in certain areas improving levels of services, acquiring the needs, goods and services that we need to operate, but as well as increasing our reserves for future uncertainties, as well as setting up reserves for future capital outlays. So overall, it's a great budget. Then my second point I wanted to make before we conclude our presentation is on Measure T. As you recall, when we brought this forward to our community, we promised that we will mostly utilize that for public safety. Measure T is a general purpose revenue which could be used for to support all city services, but our focus is in public safety, and that's what we're doing. And so when we look at the budget for the next 2 years, combined when we have police and fire, that's approximately 75% of the budget. So want to make that message across. And with that, that concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Just a comment, and we'll get into council's questions as well, but I know this budget process started months ago, and I know that it was a department wish list, a needs list, and I know the hours and dedication that you put to putting this budget together, so I thank you all of you involved. A lot of you I saw leaving very late at night at times when I was coming back from an event, but thank you all for all of your hard work. Thank you for meeting with all of us for our either one-on-one or one-on-many, or two-on-ones or whatever that is. Anyway, that didn't sound good. Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Okay, John. All right, so just thank you so much for meeting with us. It was amazing. You answered so many questions for us, and I know that some of the questions were maybe repetitive for all of us, but you always answer them so willingly and in so much detail. I know that's why we have a winning financial department here at our city. So hats off to you all. Thank you all for so much time. I will move it to any questions from my fellow council, and we're using our system today, so hopefully we'll start with Councilwoman Stone. She's first on my list.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Javier, Jennifer, and Diego. Thank you so much to your entire team for a fantastic presentation. Fellow colleagues, as you know, we approved the Mental Behavior Ad Hoc Committee in January. And our city manager, Kim Summers, had approached Councilman Lavelle and I about an organization called Care Solace. And as you know, our goal and our objective is to have our community access mental health services as an ongoing challenge, and many of our members of our community don't understand the resources or the services that we have in Southwest Riverside County. And Care Solace is a subscription-based clearinghouse that connects individuals in need of mental health services with providers. They do this by asking the person a series of questions to determine the best match for the provider, and then using a warm handoff the person directly to the provider. So basically what this is this is a service, it's a one-stop shop. In our ad hoc committee, our chief of police, Tony Conrad, was here and asked some very difficult questions, and Care Solis was able to answer all of his questions along with Councilman Lavelle and myself and our assistant city manager, Ivan Haller. Our goal was to have resources for our community. And thanks to our city manager, she brought us Care Solis, who has answered all of our questions. And this is definitely a program that I believe that Murrieta will lead Riverside County. And with that, I would like for Councilman Lavelle to join me in this conversation about how you felt about Care Solis and the impact, the positive impacts it would have not only on our hospitals, our unified school districts, our clinical therapists in our community, and even our residents.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stone. You gave a great synopsis on the company, on the program that Care Solis offers. You know, we spoke about the hospital perspective of the, Murrieta hospitals, Rancho and Loma Linda both. We take care of a certain patient population inside the ED, the emergency department, that we don't really have the appropriate level of service for any drug rehab, counseling referrals, psychiatrist. So this would certainly check the box for a lot of need that has never, ever been inside of our hospitals. So the potential savings of time and effort and resources, I think, will prove to be very, very large for the city. The residents that are going through these types of issues, I think having this resource will significantly impact how they use the resources of healthcare in the hospitals. And then that goes into police and fire. So right now, current state, a lot of the police and fire require interaction and intervention with the hospitals as part of how the care they deliver to the residents. I think if we can expedite the residents or the patients needing these types of services as they are being brought to the hospital or getting them out of the ED as soon as possible with this resource, I think it's going to, again, free up police and fire's time to be doing police and fire work in the streets. So just to echo, what you had said, Councilwoman Stone, I think it's a great program. I think residents are going to be significantly impacted for just having the access and kind of getting through the muck of how to navigate this system, which is very complex. And Care Solis seems to have a very easy way to help the patient or the person navigate those services. So,
Thank you, Councilmember Lavelle and Mayor Pro Tem Stone. Should I push this back to our city manager and ask if this is something that we need to amend to make sure we add it to the amended budget to move forward?
So one of the things, if the council wants to move forward with this, we have identified some grant funding and opioid settlement funding that we think can cover the cost annually for this program. So if the council wants to direct us, we can add it into the final budget, which then comes before you for approval.
All right, and so if I could caveat on the question, this will be only a one-year program with stats to come back to us? Is that how this is?
It can be set up however the council wants. We were proposing that we do the first year, look at the statistics, and then move forward.
Right, whether it's helping our
One way or the
residents
other.
or and helping our police and fire and et cetera.
Yes.
So, all right. So we need a direction then to put towards our budget then?
Madam Mayor, can I ask what the cost was?
The cost is about $166,000. We would like to budget for that, but there is about $90,000 of the opioid settlement that would offset some of this cost. But I would definitely budget for $166,500.
Well, I think we can do the opioid settlement with it, and then we could also use the grant.
Yeah.
So we really wouldn't have to budget for it at all, is that correct?
Well, we need to allocate it, so it's a public safety health grant
Okay,
that we would be
so to
using.
utilize it.
We'll take care of all those details for you.
Okay.
We just want to know, do you want us to bring it back in the final budget?
I think that we definitely, the program's being used at the school district from what I am aware of, and I think that it would bring great information to our residents. So I would like some more information on the program because I wasn't privy to the meetings, but you said that Chief Conrad was also there?
What we can do is we can put the funding in the budget.
Fantastic.
It won't come back to you, and then we'll, right away, and we will set up a presentation for you.
From them. Okay, I think that's fantastic. Then I would concur with Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Lavelle. And I have a couple others. Anybody else would like to comment on this from the dais?
I'm all for it.
All right. And
Ditto.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. All right. Well, we will see that addition come back as well. Thank you so very much for bringing that forward and taking the time to bring something new to help our community.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I just have one question for Diego. Diego, as you stated with regards to the insurance, I think you said there was a 20% increase across the board. I'm sorry? Yes. And my concern is right now, insurance companies are canceling. Are we okay? We may be okay right now, but I'm a little concerned about what the future holds. Can you give me your opinion, please, on that?
Yeah, I think it's great that we're part of a risk pool during these difficult times. Risk pools were created many years ago during difficult times. And so when carriers were hesitant to provide coverage to public entities because we have so much exposure, that kind of gave rise to risk-sharing pools. And so it certainly doesn't help that this is engagement at the higher levels of our coverage. And so at the lower levels of our coverage, it's the city's money, it's the pool's money, it's excess JPA's funding. And so we're then able to then go to these carriers and say, we're retaining a good amount of the risk, which allows them to feel more comfort in providing us coverage. And Beth, I don't know if you wanted to add to that?
Sure, I can expand on that. Can you hear me okay? Go ahead and come forward.
I think that is a very real concern for agencies that are purchasing standalone insurance. We have seen over the past 3 years, multiple cities that have been unable to renew their coverage.
Correct.
And so the good news for PRMA, we did pick up another member last year as a result of that standalone agency not being able to place their coverage. From a risk pool perspective, Diego is exactly right. You're in a great place because what the pool does is find resources, and we find creative and innovative solutions, much like CareSolis that you were just talking about. And so our goal is to help members find resources, training, and things to reduce their costs, remain in the pool, stay together, so that you have money and resources to do other things that are important for your community. So our goal is, even if we have a member that is having trouble with losses, not to kick them out of the pool or be punitive, but instead to go and offer solutions and assistance, risk management support, and training.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Madam City Manager.
So in an effort to keep us on schedule, what we can do if the council would desire is we can set up another more in-depth presentation for all of you on this topic, if you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you, City Manager. All right, moving down for questions on budget would be Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam City Manager, would you rather I defer my questions on the risk to that future presentation?
If you wouldn't mind.
I have no problem with that.
Thank you.
I only had 4.
We want you to have time for the CIP and to ask lots of questions for that. So.
Okay. Couple questions. First of all, echoing the mayor's comments, great job on the presentation. I know, I personally know what kind of work goes into budgets like this. And thank you, Jennifer, for highlighting that those numbers don't add up, because those catch my eye, and it's like, it's like a bump in the road. It's like, wait. So I appreciate that. Just to clarify a couple things, the unassigned fund balance doesn't get spent unless it comes back before council, correct?
The unassigned fund balance would have to be appropriated into a budget. Oh, I'm sorry. The unassigned fund balance would need to be appropriated into a budget. So that you would see that come through at a quarterly budget update. But the items that are set aside in our transfers to reserves, we can't only, staff can't spend it unless you appropriate it from this reserve fund into unassigned fund balance. So the monies that we're setting aside for facility repair, fleet replacement, that all has to come back to you and appropriate into an operating budget at a future date.
Okay, I knew that. I just wanted to clarify for everyone else.
Yes.
And the fire department and other transfers in from Measure T, those are budgeted line items. Those are not discretionary that at some point someone can say, oh, let's cut that back. That's part of the budget, correct?
It is part of the budget. We have our transfers in and out. It is a budgeted line item. And those are necessary to make that fund whole. So had we not included that in the budget, they would be operating at a deficit and be tapping into their operating reserve, which is something we don't want to do.
And just to clarify, the reason I'm kind of highlighting that is because there's been comments from the community that the fire department has a structural budget deficit, which in this budget is not the case.
That is true.
Thank you.
They don't have enough revenues, their own revenues, to support their expenditures, but we make it up through Measure T.
Perfect. Then a couple other things. The one-time expenditures, could you bring that screen up?
Yes.
So the one-time expenditures, like for the police for replacement vehicles, do we not have a sinking fund for vehicle replacement?
No, we just do pay as you go. Every year we replace that 10+1.
If I can add to the vehicle replacement, so we are working on setting up a program where we will set aside funding on an annual basis based on the number of vehicles that we have, when they're scheduled to be replaced, identifying the replacement cost, which usually would include an escalator, so that we can properly start setting funding on the side on an annual basis as opposed to pay these as we go. As we provided you with the reserve schedule, we're setting up currently right now $2 million to help us build that reserve. Once we know the schedules of our vehicle replacement, that's going to give us an idea whether that $2 million is enough or what is that we need in order to bring that schedule up to date, so that we're able to replace this on an annual basis without having this significant one-time money.
And I would encourage that, not just for vehicles, but for a lot of those one-times. A lot of that, I mean, typically organizations do a replacement reserve study for lots of things. You know, whether it's the roof, whether it's a vehicle, and it's always nice to have that sinking fund created. That sinking fund's more of a technical term, but replacement reserve fund that you're contributing to regularly, so that when those expenses come due, it's not the big one-time expense. We've budgeted for it and set aside for it all along. So I'm glad that you're heading in that direction, and I would encourage you to look at all those that could be put under that, if the council agrees. And then if you could go to the bonding slide, there was a couple. The one that showed Keller Road first. Keller Road on that list is at 0. Is that because we're anticipating getting other monies for Keller Road? I'm not sure why it's on there if we're not anticipating bonding for it.
Yeah, so this is one of the projects that we're still working towards finding other revenue sources. And so while bonding is an option, we don't want to allocate any or have the perception that we're doing that at this point. But these type of projects and all these projects in front of you will require bonding. I think that's the message we wanted to send out.
Okay, thank you. And then on that other bonding slide, that I just wanted to highlight the difference between the 20-year and the 30-year for $75 million. If you look at the total debt service of what you're paying for that $75 million, is significantly different for the 20-year to the 30-year. So while the debt service payment may be $1 million more, $1.1 million more, you're spending another $30 million for the cost of that project to add that 10 years. I just wanted to highlight that. And then my last item, city manager smiles. My last item is for city events. Most of our city events are done at Town Square Park. There's a few, one or two that are done elsewhere, but the majority of them are done on the west side of town. And I know since my district is on the northeast side and Councilmember Warren's district is on the southeast side, our residents say, hey, how come the city doesn't do anything for our side of town? So I would like to include in the budget somewhere at least one event in the northeast side of town and one event in the southeast side of town. Mine could be at Mapleton Park. I don't know where Councilmember Warren's would want to have hers, but I would like to see an event budgeted, whether it's, just a community play day to come out and do something as a community, just so the city recognizes that they're part of Murrieta too, and they don't always have to come down to this side of town to attend an event. If I could get council consensus on that.
Yes.
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 Don't you dare say.
You got a yes.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right, Madam City, do you have a question? Madam City Manager? No, okay. I saw you moving around over there. 3 online, okay, 3 waiting. Okay, so any question? And we're going to move to Councilwoman Warren. And then we'll go to Councilmember Lavelle for questions. Are they?
I'll be brief. I just have 2 questions. I have been asked by several constituents, when is Measure Team money transferred? Is it done once a year? Is it done every quarter? Someone just can't call up and say, can you transfer some Measure T funds into our expenditure budget? So I would just.
It's budgeted on an annual basis.
Okay.
And then finance prepares a journal entry and moves 1/12 every month.
Okay,
So it's measured every single month that the fund that was budgeted will receive their allotment.
thank you. And my last question is, the debt service that you're paying over that 7 years for the shortfall, is that a principal payment only, or is that principal and interest?
Principal only.
Thank you. So we're not paying for their shortfall, we're not adding to we're not contributing to their shortfall for their bad projections.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't anything added to that.
It's technically just a repayment.
Okay,
So
but it's principal only.
Yes.
Okay. I also want to echo everybody. You've done a fantastic job, and this is not easy. 30% reserves is remarkable, incredible, and every city would like to be in our position. And I'm really proud that you guys have done such a great job. Thank you for all your hard work. And that goes to everybody, every staff member in this city, because everybody put their hard work into it. So thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Warren. Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you. I'd like to echo great job as well. This looks like a very heavy task as it takes months to complete. So my question comes with the reserve amount. The 25% was a policy that we established before my time. Is 30% a new policy, or is it a best practice we're leaning towards? What does that statement look like, I guess?
So it's a goal the council wanted to be at some point. So our policy calls for 25. Our prior council members wanted to bring it up to 30%. We found that opportunity this budget cycle to do that. And so it's more of a practice and not necessarily policy.
Okay. And just for my knowledge, how good is that? In terms of California cities, is that being a best practice? Who hits the mark?
So the Government Finance Officers Association recommends a 2.5 month reserve. That's approximately 16% of our budget. We're almost double that, so it's very good.
Okay. That's all I have. Good job and congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lavelle. Moving on, Madam City Clerk, do we still have public comments or people still on Facebook?
Seeing none. No public comments, I'm sorry.
No public comments. All
Not
right.
right at this moment.
Okay. I thought they were holding on for us. All right. Any council member wish to make any more comments or discussion? If you could add yourself to the speaker list. I'll start first. I just want to, reiterate that our city moving up to the 30%, that was something that when Mayor Pro Tem and I first got on council, that was brought up, that was a goal. And thank you for reaching that goal for us, for our reserves. And that's nice to see that we are financially stable and looking to the future of uncertainty. I'm always glad to see when we look at the budget that our police numbers are also increasing as our population is increasing. I like to see that, and I'm very happy that we're growing public safety as well. And also, you guys often impress me, and because I do love the numbers, to see what you're looking at, the projections. It's like we're projecting this, and then you hit the mark year after year, which is quite incredible for TOTs and for taxes. Who knows how we're going to spend money, but you guys seem to have the crystal ball. So hats off to you for doing that too. And just to reiterate that we do have an oversight committee for Measure T. I think that is very important for our budgetary transparency. Measure T, for those of you who don't know, which may be everyone, but Measure T was passed by the community, and it was to increase our public safety and quality of life. And it is, I'm very proud to sit up here and to see us do that just with that money, and to make sure that it goes to those, to increase and enhance Murrieta. So thank you for making that happen. And it was super exciting to see the pool, beyond our capital improvements, capital improvement pool is amazing, because I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten on that pool, especially as the weather gets warm, and then we'll have rain. So and we have a little bit more time to get that pool going. So thank you so much again. And any other discussion, comments, anything? Seeing none, thank you so much for your hard work again. On behalf of the entire council, I know we all appreciate everything you've done. So now let's find out where I am. So providing consensus to staff, I think we've already done that. I think you're crystal clear with that. So let's move on to the workshop item number 1, the CIP budget workshop proposal, capital improvement plan. So then we can talk about the pool. Javier, I know you and staff are going to provide this to us.
Actually, Mr. Aaron Mendoza and Mr. Jeff Hitch will be delivering the presentation for you today.
Fantastic, thank you so much, welcome. New people in the hot seat. Yeah, exactly.
Good afternoon, Mayor DeForest, Mayor Pro Tem Stone, Council Members Holliday, Warren, and Lavelle, executive staff, members of the public. I'm Aaron Mendoza, financial analyst with the Finance Department. Alongside with me is Principal Civil Engineer Jeff Hitch of the Public Works Department. We're presenting the proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal years 23-24 through 27-28 and the proposed 23-24 CIP budget. Seated in the audience, we have the different project managers from all the departments involved in the process. The agenda for this part of the workshop before you is to present the CIP summary, the budget overview, the new proposed CIP projects, and future actions. CIP is a long-range, 5-year planning for all individual capital improvement projects and funding sources. The plan prioritizes projects over the next 5 fiscal years based on community needs, but only appropriates funding for the first year of the plan. The funding for capital projects comes from a variety of sources, but for the most part, these funds are restricted for specific types of capital project construction. These restricted funds are not available to be spent on ongoing operating costs. This next slide shows the proposed capital improvement budget ending this fiscal year 22-23. The estimated carryover balance is approximately $60 million for all projects. Approximately $16.6 million for new projects are going to be introduced. The detail will be in the next following slides. And the total estimated fiscal year 23-24 capital improvement plan budget is approximately $76.6 million. There are approximately 134 CIP projects that make up $76.6 million being appropriated for fiscal year 23-24. The proposed appropriations are staff estimates based on preliminary assessment for each project. If budget revisions are necessary based on bid responses, then an item will be taken to City Council to request additional appropriations. The next slide shows the proposed appropriations by category. The largest allocation is allocated towards streets and highways, and Mr. Hitch will discuss later in his presentation what those entail. Part of that, just a little caveat, the 134 projects, Mr. Hitch will also present part of his presentation, proposed projects that are actually not part of this presentation, so there might be a revision to the final adoption later on in June. The rest of the budget are allocated in descending order among the other categories, namely bridges, parks, building, other improvements, storm drains, and traffic signals. The next few slides I'm presenting on behalf of the other departments in the proposed citywide projects for fiscal year 23-24. I'm just highlighting the significant projects, and the detail is in the agenda packet before you this afternoon. Also present in the meeting, as I said it earlier, are the respective departmental project managers to answer any detailed questions that you may have about the new projects after our presentation. The Administrative Services Department has 3 proposed projects, namely the Alderwood Community Center Technology, paid for by the Landscape and Lighting District 25 to increase the usability of the facility and enhance security and technology. The City Hall and Fire Station 1 emergency generator update or upgrade, it is paid for a grant through FEMA. ADA transition action plans, that was as a result of the ADA Transition Plan report. It will be addressing the physical barriers, removing the barriers, and also aligned with future CIP projects. The Community Services Department, specifically the Library Division, has 3 upcoming projects I'd like to highlight. First is the library community room retrofit for technology is to enhance the usability of the room, to make it more available for use by the community and hold events. The Pollinator Garden Project, it's paid in part by a grant from the California State Library and Western Municipal Water District, is to address the need for local facilities to institute sustainable landscaping in the community and also address the growing threats to diminishing pollinator populations. The library storytime room and children's area expansion is paid for in part by a grant from the California State Library, which is approximately $1.5 million. The city received it back in January. And of course, as stated earlier, the most anticipated California Oak Sports Park pool replacement. The Parks and Rec Division is proposing a replacement, and project is going to be partly funded by ARPA funds. Also, we'll have an additional 5 additional tot lot projects at the North Star, Monte Vista, Palomar areas, and also Firefighters Park, and also shade covers at Mapleton Park. Last but not the least is the addition of EV charging stations at the Los Alamos Hills Sports Park, paid for in part by subvention funds from the South Coast Air Quality Management District, or AQMD. The fire department, or Murrieta Fire and Rescue, has the following proposed projects. The Emergency Operations Center laptops and docking stations so staff can perform duties during an activated EOC. The regional training facility study is also going to be underway to support public safety training requirements. And also the future Type 1, replacing an over 21-year-old engine, and as well as the Fire Station 6 study is to identify the design in the northeastern portion of the city to serve the residents in that location. There are also improvements to Fire Stations 1 through 3 and a potential future project for Fire Station 5 and replacements to approximately 72 self-contained breathing apparatus equipment. For the police department, there are currently 3 new CIP projects, namely the Mobile Command Center, which will serve as a backup emergency operations center. The MCC would benefit multiple departments and will have the technology to do so. There are also upcoming improvements to the PD administration area and traffic bureau offices. These are to improve ergonomics, enhance storage of sensitive information, and to address the need due to the addition of personnel. And with that, I conclude my portion of the presentation and hand it over to Principal Civil Engineer Jeff Hitch.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Council members. Glad to be here this afternoon, here to talk about new projects. As Mr. Mendoza had indicated, really not talking about the overall existing CIP, but just really focusing on the 6 new projects that we're looking at coming into this next year. And kind of starting with our citywide slurry seal. Our program for slurry seal is to do an 8-year program to apply slurry seal to all residential streets within the city. Every other year, we would be doing approximately a quarter of the city. We had a period of time where we had defaulted on doing slurry and we've been catching up. I'm happy to say with this program, we will be fully caught up and on a program to be doing 25% of the city every other year. So this project will get us caught up and hopefully stay caught up into the future. Next project that we're looking at is our annual overlay project. We do annual overlay work every year, or street rehabilitation project, asphalt rehabilitation, utilizing the SB1 funds that comes from the gas tax that was passed by the statewide voters many years ago. I think we're in the 7th or 8th year of this program. This next project is going to be anticipating looking at Murrieta Hot Springs Road between Whitewood and Margarita, as you see there on the top of the slide. and then the Clinton Keith Road between the most western city boundary and Grand Avenue, kind of fronting the Bear Creek development that you see there in that photo. So that is the kind of the extent of that. The next project that we're looking at is adding a stretch of Vista Murrieta Road. This is largely due to the increase in development that's starting to occur in this area. Various multifamily development is starting to come in through the planning department. This is being added kind of as a preemptive to be able to bring in revenue should development want to pay like a cash in lieu type scenario through that process. The cost associated with Vista Murrieta Road is, I think we'd be looking at a collector size road. Excuse me a second. And the improvements associated with this would probably be in the order of magnitude of around $4 million if we were to build all of it today. This would be funded largely from development that would be coming in and then be supplemented through other capital funding, either DIF funding or Measure A or gas tax, those types of things. Similar story for Monroe Avenue from Murrieta Hot Springs Road to Los Alamos. Again, we're starting to see the potential for development coming in through this area. We've got a very large multifamily development that's currently on coming through the planning department on the frontage of Murrieta Hot Springs Road and fronting a portion of Monroe Avenue. As we see that this area is going to be a bit constrained from right around where the intersection of Vista Murrieta Road is. There's kind of some vertical constraints through there that may make this portion of road difficult to construct by any one developer. That's typically when our department comes in to try to assist. This project is being added to see where we can try and assist with that when that becomes necessary. The funding for this will be largely be limited at the beginning. At least initially, we may be putting some money into it for preliminary design elements of it. Final construction cost will come up kind of later as we develop what the plan is going to be associated with development. The fifth project that we're looking at adding this year is the Line F improvements. So what you see here in the photo on the left side is kind of the proposed alignment where the existing Line F currently exists. Right now, if you go and look at it, it's an open channel stream that's not developed in any way, shape, or form. Extends from Washington Avenue down to Murrieta Creek. And then if you go through a relatively large storm event, as you've seen, Calmia Street is right there adjacent to it, and Line F becomes Calmia Street for that portion. So it's kind of an important project that needs to be developed. It hasn't been developed thus far, largely as we've been waiting for the Murrieta Creek project to come north. As we all know, Murrieta Creek has kind of stalled over the years. It was originally, the concept behind improving Murrieta Creek up through this stretch of Murrieta was kind of planned kind of back in the 90s, but getting funding for it has been the hiccup. So it still needs to be developed. Murrieta Creek needs to be developed. And when Murrieta Creek does get developed, it gets widened and lowered a little bit, which then provides better access for Line F. We feel at the moment that we need to start doing some preemptive analysis of Line F to determine, can we do something in the interim before Murrieta Creek fully widens to its natural conclusion and to the final invert of Murrieta Creek. So this will be part of that analysis. Potentially, we could actually build Line F before Murrieta Creek widens. So that's going to be part of that analysis. You can see here in the photo on the right is Washington Avenue, where Line F on the upstream side is a traditional concrete trapezoidal channel with standard access roads on either side. Unlikely we would be able to develop that in today's regulatory environment. That option is on the table, but it would be very expensive from a mitigation standpoint to actually construct that. We probably would have something more along the lines of soft bottom channel with maybe gabion baskets on the side, hardened side slopes with a soft bottom channel. something along those lines. But that would all be part of the analysis of going through this, of this design or analysis to develop this project. Line F, just to give you an idea, for something along those lines, just the regulatory permitting process would probably be a 3-year commitment to get through. And then pedestrian safety enhancements, I put this on here merely because we receive CDBG money or Community Development Block Grant money annually. So every year we add additional pedestrian safety enhancement project to address those. We do have a current project that's actually going out to bid, or is out to bid currently, opens actually this Thursday for a couple of years worth of projects in the past. But we will be adding a new project to address additional CDBG funding that we've received from the last year. And with that, that concludes, I believe, all the 6 projects that I have to discuss here today. And I'll pass this back over to Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Hitch. So just on the horizon, future actions for the capital improvement plan and budget, we intend to take these new projects to Planning Commission next week per California Government Code 65401. Is to review the proposed plans for conformity to the city's adopted general plan. And also on June 20th, 2023, as on an annual basis per Government Code Section 65403, City Council adopts the 5-year plan to appropriate funding for new projects and amend existing projects as needed. And with that, we conclude our presentation this afternoon, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for the in-depth presentation, and I will take council members' questions. And the first council member would be Warren?
No, that's from the last one.
Oh, you need to delete her.
No, go to.
Am I, is it me? I'm lost, sorry. Agenda. All right.
If you go into the same spot where you request
Okay.
to speak, you can unrequest.
There I are.
We got
Well,
it.
we were a little lost. We're just using this for the, oh, look at everyone popping up now. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. All right, so, Councilmember Warren, I will defer to Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
RN and Jeff, thank you again for a very detailed presentation. Great job to you and your entire team. City Manager Summers. Javier and I had a brief conversation with regards to restrooms at some of our parks. And I get a plethora of complaints throughout the year about lack of restrooms. And I was just wondering if that is something that maybe we can bring back at a later date to discuss?
Yes.
Thank you.
So part of the challenge with restrooms is the larger facilities obviously are the priority. Some of the neighborhood parks are meant to be walked to. They don't really have parking lots. And a restroom, if we do a prefab restroom that's dropped, let's say there's utilities, it can run between $500,000 and $1 million per restroom. So while this is something we would love to see in all of our parks, we will put together a memo and explain in detail what we can do. Okay?
Just to caveat that on that, I think that's a great idea. Could we put, or maybe make a policy? Can you hear me? Better? So to make maybe a policy change in the future, maybe I should bring this up at future agenda, but maybe that new parks coming in need to have restroom facilities from our developers.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody's like silence. Okay, well, we'll continue to talk about. All right. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great job on the presentation. Appreciate all the information. Couple of questions. On the Monroe, is that just a study to look at feasibility? Is that looking at costs, or is that looking at actual design?
Well, so currently, I think the Monroe budget, I think that I'm throwing together is going to show an unfunded budget of probably just over $10 million. We don't have the funding today, probably in the available funds that we have to actually build that. Plus, we know that there's development that's going to come in and build portions of that. So I think the idea at the moment is to allow that development to come in, build the portions that can be built, but continue to look at analyzing future, at least designed, kind of the remaining portions that we don't think development's going to get to. I think on either ends, down on Hot Springs end, there's development that's coming in there, and we're hearing that there might be development that might be coming in on the Los Alamos end, which kind of naturally makes sense. The big component that's going to be difficult to develop is the area about where you can kind of see actually in the photo there where the airport used to be. There used to be an airport landing strip that kind of runs through there, kind of from east to west, kind of parallel to Eleanor Way, if you see that. There's a big vertical difference between those two areas. And in that area, I think we can start to anticipate that there may be a problem getting development to finish that. So that may be an avenue. So that's the purpose of this project, is to see that. We want to put this into a project, number one, in case development doesn't have the cash and we want to accept cash in lieu. Having a project in the CIP allows a place to deposit those cash in lieu funds. And then number two, if it looks like this is something that we need to do, we'll then come to you asking for the actual budget to be able to construct those improvements.
And as I'm sure you're aware, but the public may not, Monroe Avenue has some design challenges to it. We have that blue line stream that runs over there just south of Los Alamos Road, and we have the bend down there by, is that Sparkman Way, down on the south end?
Correct, yeah.
Is that going to maintain its name, or is that being changed?
I believe that will be, it's a good question. I think the intention is to change that name to Monroe Avenue. There was an alignment study that was adopted by council that turns this into Monroe Avenue.
And we have that utility or whatever.
It's a sewer lift station that's
Lift
located
station
there.
that needs to be.
The sewer lift station actually will be, there are plans in place or afoot to replace that. The Eastern Municipal Water District currently is planning on installing sewer lines underneath Murrieta Hot Springs Road. Shortly after we paved it, they told us that they wanted to put those lines in.
Always.
Unfortunately, sometimes those things don't match up the way we want them to. We're thinking, it's sounding like it still might be a year out before they do that, but that's kind of the preemptive work for that. They eventually need to do a jack and bore project from the Triangle area across to Guava Street, which is where that sewer is going to land. Once all of that is put into place, you would then have your gravity in place and the sewer lift station goes away.
Perfect. And then my other question is on the CDBG funds. I know that you can use those for pedestrian access. I know a lot of times it's used to create the latest, whatever the state has designed as the best handicap access for intersections, which, you know, in the last 10 to 15 years, I think I've seen change 4 or 5 times of what they think the best design is. Can that also be used for sidewalk repairs throughout the city where the sidewalk has lifted and created a significant elevation difference between one chunk of sidewalk and the next?
It can be used for that. We actually have other funding sources to be able to, are currently funded to do some of that sidewalk replacement. Some of that sidewalk replacement has been in the works for some time and has not been implemented as yet. Those are things that we are still actively working on, trying to get a project out to replace. We do recognize that we have sidewalk deficiencies throughout the city that need work.
Yeah, when I was walking my district during the campaign, I was somewhat surprised to see how many had been patched with 6 inches worth of asphalt to bridge the gap between the elevations, and it was still a trip hazard. So yeah, I would encourage you to move that up the priority list a bit.
We will certainly look into doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you again, a great presentation. I want to talk about my favorite road. Murrieta Hot Springs.
Of course.
That's everybody's favorite road. Question, are we, or can we go after, or approach is a better word, sorry, I know, county for some maintenance and repairs on that road? We're gonna do an overlay. And with the heated amount of traffic that's coming through in trucks and semis from all of their developments using Murrieta Hot Springs Road, when you're doing your overlay, is there any money that we can ask for from the county to help with some of those repairs? Because a lot of it is due to their traffic coming through with their new distribution centers in the county area, French Valley and above Hot Springs Road.
Thank you for the question. Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to say the county would likely say no. There's probably not going to be money available. They would probably add a reverse argument in the fact that our residents are using their streets too. But either way, those are things that we can consider. We can certainly talk about it internally and perhaps come up with a response that might be appropriate.
I'm basically looking at the truck traffic, the semis. It's really out of control. I mean, and that's a lot of, some of our wear and tear is coming from that. So that was my question. On the overlay for Hot Springs.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I would note that Murrieta Hot Springs Road is our only truck route.
I know.
Throughout the city, and predominantly, is a major connectivity between the 15 and the 215. And we kind of have to plan for the fact that that's the case, because there's no, if you're heading southbound on either one of those roads, there's no way for you to get back onto the northbound freeway. If you were trying to make a turn, you have to take Murrieta Hot Springs Road is effectively the truck route that you have to take. So,
Councilmember Warren, another challenge would be policing that and tracking it.
Okay.
And not to mention, if they did that, then they would have to do it to every city in the county.
Okay. I was, just trying.
It's a great idea, it really is.
Just trying to see if I
I'm
could.
not sure we could talk them into that one.
I'm sorry. When you are going to do the overlay, and that's projected to be done on Hot Springs Road, with the new improvements that we're going to be doing from Marguerite to Winchester, how much of Hot Springs is going to be totally disrupted, since we've got the major improvement that's also going to happen with the lane, adding of the lanes going both directions?
So good question, excellent question. These are things that keep me up at night.
I'm sorry.
Trying to figure out how we're going to coordinate these two massive, both these projects are landing right around the same time, right?
Right.
And it wasn't planned that way. It's just sometimes the way these projects, the Hot Springs widening project has obviously been delayed substantially. The right-of-way has delayed us quite a bit just of late, as your council is aware. We're getting very close, I think, to having those issues wrapped up. And so it's looking like these projects may bid around the same time. We're going to try to schedule these so that they're not being done at the same time, because that may not be a good scenario for anybody. But those are certainly things that we're going to be cognizant of as we bid the projects. And when we start construction, we would be doing it in such a way that we're not going to completely disrupt all of Murrieta Hot Springs Road. It's going to be sections at a time.
Thank you. You can sleep easy now.
Thank you.
That concludes my questions.
Thank you, Councilwoman Warren. I just would like to say, thanks for bringing to our attention that we are going to enhance our feeder roads. I think that's super important, especially to have forethought on some of the things that are coming to our city with development-wise. And also, I was so excited to see Line F. Finally, maybe there'll be a chance that no barricades will be put up along Calmia for those poor people that can only go one way on their streets. So, and that's a 3-year project, you said?
The permitting process, effectively the project, once we start the design and get through that, it would be at least 3 years to get through that process likely. This project would likely be coordinated with Riverside County Flood Control District. I don't know if that would increase that process or not. That's something that we need to have some discussions with them about. The channel upstream of Washington is their channel. Murrieta Creek is effectively their channel. It would make sense that this should be run through them as well. Sometimes that can delay things. The permitting process, I believe that this would probably require an individual permit through the Corps of Engineers. That process is typically a 2-year permitting process. So if your CEQA process takes about a year to get to the point where you can apply for your permitting, and then a 2-year permit process through the Corps. So that's where the 3 years comes from.
Right, well, thank you for that. I know LINEF has definitely been, since I was elected, been out there, and a lot of those residents in West Murrieta are wondering why, their road is being used as the stream at times. So when Washington heads down towards Murrieta Creek right there. So thank you for that. And that ends all my questions. And moving on, now is the time for public comments. For those of you on Facebook, please submit your public comments in the comments section of the live stream. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments regarding this workshop?
Seeing none. Seeing none.
That was fast. All right. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? All right. I think that we have none from up here, and I think it's clear consensus where we'd like to go. So thank you so much for your in-depth report, and it's nice to see 2 new faces on the dais for finance. And since we are ending our workshop before 4:45, I'm going to call for a recess until 4:45, and then we will reconvene. Thank you so very much. I'd like to call to order the May 2nd, 2023 meeting of the Murrieta City Council. Roll call. Will the Madam City Clerk please call roll call?
Councilmember Warren.
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle. Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stone. Mayor DeForest.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Lavelle and Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Thank you so much. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments on closed session items only?
Seeing none.
I would like to, thank you so much, Madam City Clerk. I would like you to go over the closed session agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council will go into closed session. CS1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. The City Council will conduct a closed session pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9 D2 and D3 because there is a significant exposure to litigation in one case. The City Council will meet in CS2, conference with labor negotiator. The City Council will conduct a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 with the City Manager, the City Attorney, and the City's negotiators regarding labor negotiations with the associations as listed on the agenda. That concludes my closed session.
Thank you so much. With that, we are going to go into closed session and we will reconvene for a regular meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you. I'd like to call to order. Good evening. We are reconvening our May 2nd, 2023 meeting of the Murrieta City Council from our closed session. Madam City Attorney, could you please provide a report for our closed session?
The City Council met in closed session on 2 items. The first item was to confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9 D2 and D3. In this matter, the council was updated. There's no reportable action. The second item was to confer with the labor negotiator regarding labor negotiations with 4 different groups pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Again, the council was updated. No reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Madam City Clerk, could we have roll call for determination of a quorum?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam City Attorney, I apologize. I would like to confirm, did Mr. Lavelle recuse himself from a closed session item?
From CS1.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry if I missed that. Councilmember Warren.
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Here.
Mayor DeForest.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present.
And I'd like the record to be stated in closed session, everyone was present?
The first
Yes.
item.
On the first-
Thank you for that.
Item.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Madam City Attorney. All right, moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. I'd like to invite Chaplain Fred Schaefer from Hospice of the Valleys forward to lead us in the pledge and in our invocation as well. Would you all stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. God of all people, universal spirit, higher power, we know you by many names, but we know that you are a God of justice and love. We come with gratitude in our hearts because we are grateful for those who are in this room with hearts of a servant. Mayor, council members, clerks, and all others that are gathered here to do the work of the city, work that you have given them to do and called to them to do. We ask your blessing upon this time of meeting for the purpose of doing the work of the city. And we pray for wisdom for those who lead. And this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you coming here tonight. Thank you. All right. Moving on to our presentations. I have a proclamation which I am very excited to give this evening, and it's a proclamation for Professional Municipal Clerks Week. And where would we be without our clerks? So thank you so much to them, and I'm super excited to recognize them. And I'd like to read a proclamation for them, and then also I'd like to take a picture with them. So, because they never get any of the spotlight, they're always working diligently to keep us in line and in order and professional and legal, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you so much for what you do. We greatly appreciate you. Whereas in 1984, President Ronald Reagan enacted Proclamation 5153, followed by a joint resolution of Congress that officially declared Municipal Clerks Week. And whereas the fundamental core of the city clerk is to serve as the liaison between the citizens and their local government and protecting the public's right to access the city records and information concerning the conduct of people's business, all while serving government bodies, all city departments, and agencies of government at all levels. Whereas city clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality, impartiality, rendering of equal services to all. Now there be it resolved that I, Mayor Lisa DeForest, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Murrieta, do hereby recognize Professional Municipal Clerks Week and extended appreciation to our City Clerk, Crystal McDonald, and Deputy City Clerk, Kimberly Ramirez, for a vital service that they perform and dedication to the City of Murrieta. And we love them, and we are excited to celebrate your week with you, so let's take a picture with you, girls. Start with that? Yes. I want to second somebody's wrong chair. All right. Yes, sir.
So I too would like to thank our city clerk and our deputy city clerk. They truly work long hours behind the scenes. They're often here at midnight getting the agenda out. They handle multiple things all the time. with some fairly faulty software that they've been working with. We're replacing that, though. And so I would like to just personally thank the two of them for all of their dedication, and most people will never know how dedicated they truly are. So thank you.
Very well said. Thank you, Madam City Manager. So appreciated. So it's always fun to start with something great. So now we're going to move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight? Seeing none. You guys are fast, and a vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you so much. Department Commission announcement, Madam City Manager, administrative update.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
All right. Moving on to our governing body commissions and committee boards reports. Madam City Clerk, and I think we're starting off with Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 20th of April, I attended the Riverside County Transportation Commission Budget and Implementation Meeting. We are allowed to attend via Zoom for committees, so I met over at the French Valley Library, or French Valley Airport, and met there. And then I also attended with Councilman Holliday, Town Square Amphitheater Subcommittee meeting, where we were updated on the progress and we're moving forward rapidly. And I wanted to thank staff for all their hard work. They have been diligent and it's moving forward in the right direction. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Lavelle.
I'll defer mine for next meeting, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Holliday.
In addition to that subcommittee, I attended yesterday both the Riverside Conservation Authority and Western Regional Council of Governments meetings up in Riverside. For the RCA, the biggest thing there is they're looking at ways to change policies, procedures, even considering amending the plan to be able to make it fiscally viable for the future. It's almost a 20-year-old plan, but that's something that's very beneficial to any development in our area, because without it, the individual developers would have to go to all the federal agencies themselves. So it's crucial we keep the plan in place, but it has to be viable. So that's an ongoing process. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Holliday. Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Mental Behavior Ad Hoc Committee hosted their very first meeting. And we had a company called Care Solace that came and presented to us. And this is a subscription-based clearinghouse where individuals, even our public safety, are in need of mental behavior providers. And it is a one-stop shop. And everything that they have presented was one of our goals and our objectives, is to have resources, providers available to the residents with regard to mental behavior health. And I want to thank our city manager, Kim Summers. She was at a conference and walked up to a table and they had this little squishy thing. And she said, oh, I really like this. And in having a conversation with Care Solace, ironic about timing, Kim brought it back to Councilman Lavelle and I and said, I believe that this is what your goal and your objective is, and I think that this company can provide exactly what you need. And after our ad hoc committee, we had CEOs of hospitals, we had nonprofits, our chief Conrad had some very tough questions for Care Solace, our assistant city manager, and even Brian. It seems like it is an absolutely amazing program, and they will be coming back and giving a presentation to the entire council. As far as our Southwest Elected Women Collaborative, that was postponed, and I want to thank Councilman Holliday for attending the RCA meeting on my behalf. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem Stone. My report is that I attended the RTA meeting. We heard from some amazing UCR students that commented on an update to the app. So RTA is looking at an updating app and moving forward with that. That's the only thing to report out on that committee. Public comments of a non-agendized items. Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any person may address the governing bodies on any subject pertaining to city business. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the governing bodies on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Connie McConnell.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I just wanted to update you on some of the activities downtown. Our market is planned for this Thursday. We are going to be doing the theme, May the 4th be with you. So anybody who wants to come in costume, we welcome that. And the big prizes, we'll put you on our social media. I mean, who could resist it, huh? And I know it's supposed to rain a little bit, but the latest is that it rains Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, then it clears up. So our plans at this time is the market will be going on. One thing I wanted to bring up to you, and I have to read this because I don't remember the whole name. We have one of our gentlemen who lives in Murrieta, who is a member of our Arts Council, is Mr. Gregory Bach. And you may have heard of Bach Theater down there. He did a small intimate theater at one time. It was really very good with only like 12 people there. But, and he wasn't able to keep that place. But he is actually a TV actor. I think he played on Criminal Minds. He has been a trainer. He has produced plays. He's taught acting to kids. And he is putting on a play. It's an original. It's called Rosetta and the Mount Calvary Missionary Club. It's a comedy drama which takes place in Alabama in 1959. And hopefully it will be opening downtown Murrieta on July 22nd. So I'll be updating you on that. I've read part of the script. It is hilarious. And everybody should plan on coming to see it. And it will be held outside at the alleyway when it's produced. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you so much, Connie. Madam City Clerk.
That concludes public comments.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the consent calendar. Approval of items 1 through 9. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be enacted by one motion and vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless specific items are removed from the consent calendar for a separate motion. Are there any requests from the City Council to pull a consent calendar item for discussion or abstaining from voting? I will start. I will be recusing myself from item number 8 as I own a business within 500 feet of the project. And we could go.
Oh, you want me to go next?
Go ahead.
I am abstaining on item number 7 with respect to LLD 11, only because I own property within the zones.
Thank you so much. And Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be abstaining from item 6, Zone F, and item 7, LLD 15, because I own property in those locations as well.
Fantastic. Councilmember Holliday.
I will be abstaining on item 7, Landscape and Lighting District number 15, as I have an interest in property nearby.
And last but not least, Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be abstaining from item 6, Zone A, as I have a investment property within 500 feet. Thank you, Madam
So,
Mayor.
is that clear, Madam City Clerk?
Very clear, with the one exception, Mr. Councilmember Holliday. You had recused yourself from LLD 15, is that correct?
Yes.
LL 16.
16?
I believe it's LLD 16, but
What did I say? Yeah, Landscape and Lighting District 16. 16, 1-6.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for the clarification. Now I need to call for a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0, with Mayor DeForest recusing herself from item 8. with Councilmember Stone recusing herself from item 6, Zone A, and Councilmember Lavelle recusing himself from item 6, Zone F, and from item 7 with Councilmember Warren recusing herself from LLD 11, Councilmember Holliday from LLD 16, and Councilmember Lavelle for LLD 15. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much, Madam City Clerk, for that clarification. We greatly appreciate that. Moving on to discussion. I'd like to ask our Finance Director. Presentation and review of the City of Murrieta's fiscal year 2021-2022 annual comprehensive financial report and single audit.
Madam Mayor, I'll be doing the presentation on behalf of Javier tonight.
Thank you. We've seen a lot of you today, haven't we?
Yes, yes, you have. It should be on. Yes, it's on, and when you just click. Okay, we're all set. Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, city staff, and members of the public. Jennifer Terry, Finance Manager, and to my right is Daphne Munoz, Principal of Clifton Larson Allen LLP, the city's independent audit firm. Tonight we are presenting the city's annual comprehensive financial report, or ACFR for short, and the single audit report, which is an audit of the federally funded programs. The activities contained in these reports are for fiscal year 21-22. The annual comprehensive financial report has been prepared in conformance with the principles and standards in financial reporting that was set by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which is often referred to as GASB. Our fiscal year 21-22 ACFR has been audited by the city's independent audit firm. The city's independent auditor follows audit industry standards established by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. These standards require our auditor to provide an opinion on specific areas of financial statements based on their observations, inquiries, sampling, and analysis. One of the objectives of the financial report is to report on the city's financial position and results of operations. In accordance with the statement of audited standards, 115 and 114, the city's independent auditor is required to report the results of the audit to those in charge of governance. Before I turn the presentation over to Ms. Munoz, I am pleased to share that the audit firm has issued an unmodified, or also known as a clean opinion on the city's financial statement. In addition, the audit resulted in no findings for either the financial statements or the single audit report. And now I'll turn it over to Daphne.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Again, my name is Daphne Munoz, and I am a principal at Clifton Larson Allen, and I'm here tonight to present to you the results of our audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. My presentation will cover 3 sections. I'll be going over the scope of our services. I'll also go over our auditor's opinion and the reports that we've issued. And lastly, I will be reporting on the communication with those charged with governance. These are required communications by our professional standards. So for our scope of services, we performed an audit of the financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2022, in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. The city spent more than $750,000 in federal expenditures. Therefore, the city is subject to audit of federal expenditures under the uniform guidance. It's commonly referred to as single audit. It's a compliance audit with federal programs. And lastly, we've also performed and agreed upon procedures related to the city's calculation of the appropriations limit. The very first page of the annual comprehensive financial report is our auditor's opinion. the format changed a little bit this year, where the very first paragraph actually talks about our opinion and also the period that we are auditing. So for this year, the period covered by our audit is July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2022. As Ms. Terry mentioned, we have issued an unmodified opinion for June 30, 2022, which means that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with GAAP. The financial statements are the responsibility of management, as well as the presentation of those financial statements and internal controls over those statements. Our responsibility as auditor is to express opinions on those financial statements. Our standard requires us to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatements. We are not providing an absolute assurance because we perform our audit on a test basis. We did not look at all transactions that happened during the year. And lastly, we've obtained audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Some general fund highlights. The fund balance at June 30, 2022 was $104.9 million, of which $4.5 million is non-spendable. And this is, non-spendable means that are the prepaid that are not available for prepaid and advances that are not available to fund operations. $203,000 is for restricted, and $59.6 are committed for different purposes, and $40.7 million is assigned and unassigned. Basically, this is the part of the general fund balance that can be spent in accordance with whatever the council desires. The revenues and other financing sources for the year totaled $89.7 million, with expenditures and transfers out $67.6 million, which had totaled to a net change in fund balance of $22.1 million. So I'd like to point out that included in the general fund is Measure T fund, which as of June 30, 2022 had a $43.5 million fund balance. As part of our audit, we considered the city's internal control over financial reporting to determine whether our audit procedures are appropriate for the purpose of expressing our opinion on the financial statements. However, we do not provide an opinion on the internal control over financial reporting. I'm pleased to announce that there were no material weaknesses. We did not have any recommendations, whether it's material weakness or significant deficiencies. And the last section of my presentation is that our professional standards require us to communicate certain information to those charged with governance. First is that the plan, scope, and timing of our audit was communicated during our planning meeting with management. Again, management is responsible for the selection of use of appropriate accounting policies, which are described in Note 1 to the financial statements. This year, the city had to implement GASB Statement Number 87, which changed the presentation and the reporting of leases, whether they're operating or capital, whether the city's a lessor or a lessee. And this was implemented effective July 1st, 2021. The financial statements include significant estimates for which actual results could vary from the estimates included in the financial statements. The significant estimates for the year were the annual required contribution, pension expense, net pension liability related to the city's CalPERS defined benefit pension plan, as well as the OPEB expense and the net OPEB liability with regards to the city's other post-employment benefit plans. These estimates are based on actuarial valuation that is provided by CalPERS actuary, and also an actuarial valuation provided by an actuary hired by the city. The most sensitive disclosures included in the financial statements are included in Note 11 that discusses the city's defined benefit plan, and Note 12 regarding the city's other post-employment benefit plan. We did not have any difficulties during our audit. We did not have any disagreements during the course of our audit. The city provided us a representation letter dated March 30, 2023. Basically, this is a letter for which management has represented to us that they have provided us all pertinent information related to our audit. And lastly, to our knowledge, the city management did not consult with other accountants regarding any auditing or accounting matters. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And I would just like to ask Daphne, how often do you get no findings with a city as large as ours?
I would say it's a mix. Really, I cannot say how often, but what I could say though for the city of Murrieta, this is like 2 years in a row that we did not have any findings. I think this is our fifth year. I think the first 3 years we've had findings for which the city management have really diligently tried their best to eliminate those findings. So for the last 2 years, we have not had any findings.
Fantastic. Very, very proud of our finance department, so thank you. Any other questions, anything from the dais? Seeing none, all right. So thank you, staff, and this is a receive and file item, so we appreciate your time, and thank you so much for your presentation. Moving on to discussion item number 11, interim urgency ordinance adopting multifamily objective design standards and adoption of exemption from CEQA. Could we have the staff report on this?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mayor Pro Tem as well. I'm interim city planner Carl Steele here tonight, and beside me here we have Deputy Director Jared Ramaya and Development Services Director David Chantarangsu. We're here tonight on item number 11, the interim urgency ordinance for the multifamily objective design standards. So the Objective Design Standards project was initiated by our consultant team at PlaceWorks about a year ago with staff. Since that time, we've had 2 Planning Commission workshops and 2 meetings with our Development Advisory Group as we've worked through the drafts on the project. And last fall, we circulated an online survey and gathered some more input for the project. And we've worked up to the point where we've prepared draft objective design standards that are currently on public review. They were released on public review a few weeks ago, and that will wrap up in a few weeks. And this is what the document looks like. You can see there on the screen. So a little background on the urgency to take action due to state law. So in 2017, the state legislature passed SB 35, and it went into effect in 2018. SB 35 requires a city to approve a qualifying affordable housing project under its criteria as ministerial, a by right approval on residentially zoned land without the ability for the city to require any discretion or a public hearing. The city had planned to work on our objective standards in part related to SB 35, and in recent years, the state, especially HCD, have ramped up on encouraging more SB 35 projects. We haven't had one yet in our city, but a neighboring jurisdiction has in the past year. And then last year, while we had already gotten going on the project, the state legislature passed AB 2011, which is effective July 1st of this year. And AB 2011 allows for a similar process for certain affordable housing projects to be approved with the ministerial process by right on land zoned for office, retail, or parking uses, which is essentially all of our commercial office and innovation zones, without the need for a rezone or any discretion or a public hearing. Both of these laws have created a situation where multifamily projects could be processed in the city with little to no control other than existing standards in the development code. This creates a potential threat to public safety, health, and welfare of our community, as lack of development criteria could negatively impact property values, personal privacy, and fire safety. The adoption of objective design standards allow for local control to address these types of ministerial projects. So I'll take you through a brief walk through the objective standards as you have in the staff report. They include these 5 chapters: a purpose, some general standards, a chapter on building types, a chapter on the allowed architectural styles that we're providing for, and finally compliance checklists. So the general standards that apply to all projects include specific standards in the document related to site planning, parking, landscaping, lighting, open space, and amenities to ensure projects have a quality design with everything the city expects with these types of projects. Chapter 3 on the building types deals with essentially 3 scenarios. The typical low-rise project we see of 2 to 3 stories, the mid-rise project of 4 to 6 stories, of which we've recently processed a few and have a few in process, and the high-rise scenario, which although rare and only likely to occur in our transit-oriented development area, we're providing standards to comply with should an applicant propose that type of a project. That way we have it covered. So chapter 4 deals with architectural styles, and I'll walk through these for you. There's Spanish colonial revival, craftsman, and American mercantile, the first 3 being the styles that we have in the downtown specific plan already. And then we've added some others, modern, Tuscan, and farmhouse, and that's based on an analysis we did initially on the project with our consultant team. So to walk you through each one, this is the Spanish style. If you think of Santa Barbara or Balboa Park, you have archways with clay tile roofs in this style. It's probably the most commonly utilized style that we have in Southern California. We have many local examples, both existing on the ground in the city and in process. This is the craftsman, or California bungalow style. A lot of use of wood and stone with exposed rafters and beams. Our civic center and the city hall and library are like a modern form of this style, and our recently approved Oakview Ranch Adams Avenue project has this style. This is American mercantile, so essentially Main Street America. We have examples of this in the downtown. And like I said, these first 3 styles we walked through are the ones in the downtown specific plan. We also have the modern style with the use of glass and metal to create an aesthetic. We have modern buildings in the city, such as the Courtyard Marriott or the Crossings Corporate Center buildings north of Rancho Springs. Would it come to mind? This is the Tuscan style, which is similar to Spanish, but has this rural Italian element that you find in northern Italy. This style is popular in our area related to the wine industry. We have some subdivisions in the city that have homes that have incorporated this style. And then finally, the farmhouse style. This is a rural residential interpretation for a multifamily project. Our consultants who've worked on various design projects in western Riverside County have said this is becoming a very popular style in our area. It gives a nod to the agricultural and ranching history, and we currently have projects in the city in process that are utilizing this style. So with that, those are kind of the 6 styles, and then we've looked at where we would apply them in different areas in the city depending on zoning. Some of this is based on the workshops with the commission, input from the DAG and discussions with the DAG group, and also our community survey. So there's a number of different scenarios where styles could be used in different areas, and we're trying to provide flexibility and variety, but not necessarily require every style in every area. You can see the downtown specific plan limits to the 3 styles that are already allowed in the downtown specific plan. And then we were trying to limit some other styles in other areas, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we look at the map. So here's the map, and to walk you a little bit through this, right when we started on the project, we were only really looking at the transit-oriented development overlay area, which you can see where the dotted red line is. I can get the pointer to work. We were looking at the downtown specific plan area, which is in blue, and then we were looking at the multifamily areas, which there are some of these, the teal color and the red. What the state's done with the new state law with AB 2011 is it's added all of that green and purple and yellow and brown that you can see to being considered. So all these new areas where we need to provide objective standards for multifamily because the new state law allows projects in these areas ministerially. So we won't be able to have a hearing in those areas for projects that are proposed. So I do have blow-ups of these areas for more discussion, but keep walking through here. So to sum up what's in the document, finally we have the checklist and how they would work. Essentially each type of potential building and each architectural style has a combined checklist. So if you're doing a mid-rise craftsman, there's a specific checklist for that. If you're doing a low-rise Spanish, there's a specific checklist for that. So there's a number of different checklists at the back of the document. The applicant would work on their half of the checklist and work through the items, and then staff would check them off when staff does their review. Essentially, that's how we would do the reviews using these objective standards. and this is how they'd be reviewed moving forward. And either the applicant meets the standard and it's complete, or they don't, and then we would follow up with them on that. So it's straightforward. It's supposed to be something that anybody can do. I guess it takes some of the mystery out of planning for us planners, makes it straightforward for our applicants. So this just to show you what it looks like. This is what the checklist example looks like. You can see on the left, we would encourage an applicant to submit it obviously with items complete and show us where those are, and then staff would use the other side, and we had the ability to put comments in there. So this is what's in the draft. And then to provide a little bit more detail on the maps, these are the blow-ups to help with the discussion. On these, we also included the styles that are allowed in each area on the left-hand side, you can see. And we can walk through this, but essentially of the northern part of the city here, it shows the different styles, and with the new state law, they're adding, the large office area north of Loma Linda, our innovation areas north of Costco are sort of new areas. The commercial areas around Costco are even included in there. And then in the southern part of the city, the central part of the city, the transit-oriented development area, the TOD overlay is outlined in red, and the downtown specific plan, you can see they're outlined in blue. Those were existing areas we were already planning on utilizing the objective standards, but then the new state law has added all those green areas you see there that are commercial, and the yellow area down there, in the innovation area in the southern part of the city, and then the brown office area north of Rancho Springs. That's all kind of new, that we weren't even thinking we were going to use these objective standards. So you can see why the urgency ordinance kind of came about. We were very concerned when we started seeing this and this new law going into effect in July. So to sum up the next steps, we would complete public review here this month, finalize the objective standards with the potential comments we might receive from public review. So we're still, open to making changes to the document. We've communicated that with members of the public and the commission. We prepare a development code amendment to make sure we further integrate the objective standards into the development code. There's a bit more to do there. Here tonight, you have a very simplified objective ordinance that just puts reference to the document, but we would do a bit more there. In the meantime, with the urgency ordinance, there's a process we would need to report back to you, the council, on the implementation of the ordinance over the next month. We plan to return to the Planning Commission in June for recommendation on the final objective design standards, and we're planning to return to City Council in August for adoption with implementation to follow. So shortened time frame here. So we also wanted to bring up a couple other items just for additional consideration. Based on some recent projects, staff has an additional consideration for the City Council that the city could limit the modern style to only the transit-oriented development area, the office, and the innovation areas at this time, and remove it from any other proposed areas. This would fit with the type of buildings that are found in these areas, and this was something we discussed with the Planning Commission at the recent Planning Commission workshop. So that's something we could do. We had already put the document on public review before we had that workshop, so that's something we could look at tonight. This would fit, and to further clarify, all the project applications that come in following adoption of the urgency ordinance tonight, so starting tomorrow, would be subject to objective design standards. We plan on some refinements over the next few months, as I mentioned, but the draft standards as prepared would start being applied moving forward. And I would mention we do have applicants that are in contact with staff that have already started working with utilizing the new standards. I would say there's a number of applicants who've been proactive in working with staff, and we appreciate that. And they're anticipating to work towards, they were already anticipating that we were working towards adopting the standards, so they wanted to be in compliance. So with that, it's a long recommendation, but staff recommends to waive full reading and adopt by a 4/5 vote the urgency ordinance of the City Council of the City of Murrieta, California, amending Title 16 of the Murrieta Municipal Code to revise the city's development code to implement multifamily residential and mixed-use residential objective design standards. 2, to find that the said actions are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, as this item meets the required actions of CEQA Guidelines Section 15183. Projects consistent with the community plan or zoning, because the urgency ordinance directs staff to adopt and implement design standards which will not cause a significant environmental impact and implements a uniformly applied development policy or standard that is consistent with the general plan draft housing element policy to further regulate multifamily residential development. And 3, to direct city staff to prepare execute and file with the Riverside County Clerk a notice of exemption within 5 working days of the adoption of this ordinance. And I'd also like to thank the City Attorney's Office for their help in preparing this item. Really appreciated it. Helped us a lot over the past few weeks. And we'd also like to thank our team at PlaceWorks. Unfortunately, our lead consultants couldn't be here tonight, but we appreciate all the work they've done with us over the past year, and they'll be working with us to bring it back to you in August. And that completes my presentation.
Thank you so much. I just want to tell you, thank you for listening. Thank you for your hard work getting this ordinance moved forward fast. Thanks to David and Jared as well. So thank you so much. All right, Councilwoman Warren, without being on the list. Sorry,
I'm
John.
not on the list, sorry, John.
Yeah.
I would like to recommend that we add to the language, limit modern to the TOD office and innovation areas only at this time. I'd like that to be added if I have consensus with my colleagues.
I concur.
Thank you.
All right, now moving on to Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you. I'll start with a comment on Councilwoman Warren's recommendation. You had mentioned that there were applicants already complying or trying to comply with the standards. If we're going to limit the modern to TOD, are there any modern developments that would be in compliance without that clause in development now, outside of the TOD area?
There's only, Councilmember Lavelle, there's only one modern project that really used a modern style, and it's already approved, and it's almost under construction, and it's in the TOD.
Oh, okay.
So that one's good to go. There are no other ones that I'm aware of that this would apply to.
Okay. And would like to say thank you. I was on the Planning Commission, as you guys know, and this would have been helpful to have 4 years ago. And I saw this coming and brewing, and a way to answer and help guide these types of developments to best fit the look and the feel of the city. I think this is really, it's nice to see. So thank you and good job.
Appreciate it. We appreciate your work on that too as well, Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you, Councilmember Lavelle. Any other comments? I'd just like to say thank you so much. This will help guide developers as what we demand in our city, and to help maintain our local control and to have some cohesiveness in our city, so we don't have a modern in the middle of horse ranches, right? So thank you so much. Much appreciated. And moving on, Madam City Clerk, are you over there?
There are no public comments.
Thank you so much. And no other discussions or comments, so I'll call for a motion and a second. And Madam City Clerk, you made sure that we added the wording about the modern.
Yes, I will repeat it after I get the vote.
Thank you.
I apologize for that.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Motion carries unanimously, 5-0, to adopt urgency ordinance number U590-23, entitled An Urgency Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Murrieta, amending Title 16 of the Murrieta Municipal Code to revise the city's development code to implement multifamily residential and mixed-use residential objective design standards to include limiting modern to the TOD to the innovations only. Is that correct?
In the office.
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you so much. All right, moving on to item number 12, declaring city-owned real property to be surplus. And we have Assistant City Manager Ivan Holler to present the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This item is a request to declare portions of 2 parcels and 1 entire parcel adjacent to City Hall as surplus land. But before we get into talking about the Surplus Land Act process, I want to give you a little background on this request, which really came out of staff's review of future needs. As you all have seen, I know that you've been around the building, you've seen the recent improvements inside with all of the furniture upgrades. But as a part of that, I'm sure you've noticed that we're almost at capacity here in City Hall, and we'll need to expand our facilities at some point in the fairly near future. Just as a point of reference, current City Hall is about 35,000 square feet. And when staff did an analysis of our future needs, that doesn't mean we're looking out 1 or 2 years, but we're looking out a number of years in the future. We determined that we would need to construct an annex adjacent to City Hall of approximately 25,000 square feet. That's certainly more than what we would need right now, but it's not. The greater expense is in the FF&E, not so much in the shell building. So it, I think, ends up being better to build a little bit more than we need now and have that in place in the future. We also would need over 125 additional parking stalls to accommodate the additional facility, as well as provide parking for routine amphitheater needs. And these additional program elements that I've just described will require about 3 acres of vacant land, development of vacant land around City Hall. So that's a number that I'd ask you to keep in mind for a moment. As you'll see in just a second, the city owns a total of 5 undeveloped parcels of land in the Civic Center complex, and those total about 12.3 acres. Out of the approximately 8.6 acres located along Calmia, the city would have a surplus of about 5.5 acres if we take out what our future needs are estimated to be, which is about 3 acres. The parcels, and just to be clear, the parcels adjacent to the police department and the senior center are not a part of this item. So this slide shows the Civic Center area, and the subject parcels are shown at the top of the slide, and you'll see them as being labeled surplus. For the parcels outlined in red, we are only proposing to dispose of the portion of those 2 lots that are immediately adjacent to Calmia. The portions of the lot adjacent to City Hall and adjacent to the amphitheater would remain under city ownership. And those are the areas that we need. Those are those 3 acres that we need for future expansion for our needs. I would also like to point out, just for reference, that although you see a line subdividing those 2 parcels into 4 lots, that line doesn't exist today. And so that would be what we would need to do in the future, and that would be implemented either through a certificate or some other subdivision process. And again, the lots that, as you can see on the lower portion of the slide, that are adjacent to PD and the Senior Center are not included as a part of this, this item. So now we'll switch gears back to the Surplus Land Act. Now that you have a little background, the Surplus Land Act is a state law that requires a public agency to follow a prescribed process to dispose of surplus land. First, the city council would need to declare that the land is surplus, which is the subject of this evening's action. Next, the city must offer the surplus property to other public agencies and affordable housing developers. That's a part of what the Surplus Land Act is, requires. This is done by providing a notice of the surplus land declaration. If there is not an agreement on price or terms after a period of negotiation, the city can notify Housing and Community Development and then is able to sell the property to other interested parties. And properties that go through this process are typically sold at fair market value. And this slide speaks a little bit to timing. Time is of the essence in this respect. The entire process, we estimate, will take about 150 or 180 days. So the longer time period takes us out to the end of the year to complete this. If a public agency or housing developer is interested in purchasing the property, then they must notify the city within 60 days of receiving the notice that the city would publish. And the parties then have a 90-day period to conduct good faith negotiations. The second reason that timing is important is that the legislature is currently considering changes to the Surplus Land Act that may make the process to dispose of surplus property even more difficult or restrictive. Thus, it would be beneficial for us to complete the process before the end of the year when any new legislation might take effect. And finally, this is an important note. The city can cancel the surplus land process at any time prior to approving a contract to sell the land. So with that, staff recommends that your council adopt Resolution 23-4664. I will spare you the reading of the resolution. It's also in your agenda report. And that concludes staff's report, and I'm available to answer any questions your council may have.
Thank you so much for that report. And do I have anyone? I see nobody. All right. I see no comments from council, so thank you so much. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments?
Seeing none.
All right. Council member in no comments or discussions? Nothing. All right. Can I call for a motion and a second? You guys are fast tonight.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you so much. Moving on to governing body announcements. Madam City Clerk, we'll start with Cindy Warren.
That'd be me. Thank you, Mayor. I'm honored to be a part of an organization called the 100 Women Who Care, and I attended their meeting in April, and also attended the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California Western Riverside County's reception with District Chair Ortega, and that was on the 20th of April. I also had the honor of attending the Murrieta Library Seed Ribbon Cutting and Earth Day event with Mayor Lisa DeForest, and it was fabulous. Well attended. That seed library is amazing, and I'm looking forward to taking some seeds from my own garden back to the library so we have some more Murrieta seeds to add to it. That was an exciting day, as was the 24th or the 25th when I attended the Carol Carson dedication ceremony for renaming the Garden of Verses. What a wonderful dedication to a very devoted lady in Murrieta. It was an honor to be a part of that as well. And I also, last week I attended a meeting with the city and the staff and the Murrieta Girls Softball Association to talk about items regarding Cal Oak Sports Park and button down a few little things that we were not sure about and they had questions about. So thank you, Brian, and your staff for meeting with them. It was wonderful. Also attended the National Crime Victims' Right Candlelight Vigil, where for the very first time I read names, and I can only tell you that that was very emotional. And I'm sorry that we have to have a vigil like this for our victims. They deserve better. And last but not least, I had the honor with all my colleagues to attend the Law Enforcement Appreciation Dinner and Recognition Ceremony. And our own Corporal Matthew Mazingo was awarded Excellence in Community Service for his Citizens Academy in Murrieta, and also our retired Murrieta PD captain and retired Riverside County Under Sheriff Dennis Fruman. He received the Lifetime Achievement Award. It was an honor to be there with Chief Conrad and my staff and our colleagues to honor such wonderful, wonderful community service police officers. That concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Warren. Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a picture because I knew somebody up here would, but I was also honored to be part of the Garden of Verses renaming ceremony, and just want to reiterate how nice and really a privilege it was to have all 5 of us there for the ceremony. And I did not know a lot about her life or her passing, so it was nice to be there and see how much she was loved. So, And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Lavelle. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In addition to several of the same things Councilmember Warren talked about, add a couple. I met with Assemblywoman Kate Sanchez virtually to discuss AB 742. And I know the chief has, and the city has sent a letter of opposition to that, but I don't think that we can talk about that too little, because it's definitely a tool. It's the one that they're trying to eliminate, basically canine use for police departments. Our department uses canines responsibly. It's very successful, and it saves officers' lives, as it would have definitely cost an officer his life for a Riverside sheriff when the police dog went looking for a suspect and he shot the dog. Not that I don't value dogs' lives, but I certainly value our police officers' lives a little more. So, and I also talked to her to tell all her colleagues that Sacramento needs to understand that one-size-fits-all legislation does not work for most cities, especially for Murrieta. And it's nice to see in their discussions up there on new bills that are coming up that they're actually starting to talk about local control and how much local control they can work into some of this legislation. On April 26th, I toured the Cultivating Inclusion Garden, which kind of tucked away. If you've never been there, it's just north of Floor and Decor. You got to kind of go behind that shopping center and park in the parking lot of the park, and then walk behind the baseball field, and then you can see it. So from the parking lot, you don't even know it's there. I had to call someone and say, okay, I'm here, where do I go? So if you've never been there, it's a great place. Cultivating Inclusion helps disadvantaged adults that are dealing with disabilities. They plant a garden, basically, and they have their own little sections. In fact, this week, they're currently planting all week long and have encouraged all Murrieta residents to come out and participate in that. And then once the crops grow, they turn it over to our local food pantry. It's one of the ones that we give community development block grant money to continue. It's a great organization with a great purpose. We met with staff last week regarding bringing back the Santa stops. And as I've put out on my social media, to make that happen, we're gonna need a lot of volunteers from the city. And if the city is willing to support that, council is willing to support that. But if the volunteers don't show up, we're gonna be forced to choose another alternative, because we just do not have the city staff to just put it on all by ourselves. I think last count, Mr. Ambrose, we were around 108 volunteers needed to put this event on properly. And, you know, unless we want to shut down the whole police department for a day and have them be the volunteers, I don't think our chief would appreciate that. So we definitely need we need volunteers to come out and volunteer for that. There's a Facebook page called Bring Back the Santa Stops. That's where I would encourage you to go, search for that on Facebook and put your name on the list to be volunteers. And the last thing I attended on April 28th was the State of the College at Mount San Jacinto College. I had taken a couple classes there myself, and it was nice to see back when I went to college, Palomar College in this area was the premier community college for our area. And Mount San Jacinto was a very small college that had just started expanding into other areas, Menifee being one. And now they have satellite campuses all over the place. I ran over time, Madam City Clerk. You're gonna cut off my mic. Yeah, what's the safe word?
What's the safe word?
But it was just, I mean, the stuff they've done there is incredible, and they are now the premier community college in our area with campuses all over the place, including a large one in Temecula, and they just dedicated a football field and track and stands and everything is what we were there to do the ribbon cutting on, but the state of the college as well. They've really stepped up, and I'm pleased to see that we have that in our backyard. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Holliday. And Mayor Pro Tem Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor DeForest. I missed last council meeting. I was getting ready to go to our firefighters barbecue to serve. And I was sitting on my bed looking at a text message, and I coughed and I threw my back out. So bad that I could not move nor extend my arm for 24 hours, and my stepchildren finally said to call 911. So, Chief, I want to let you know that the entire team showed up at my home, and surprise, surprise, they were exceptional. I just have to tell you that your firefighters, and Chief Conrad, same with the police, but your firefighters are the best. And I ended up taking some pain medication the next week to go deliver breakfast burritos, just to say thank you. And even though they said it's their job, but still, you know, to live in a community where public safety is the very, very best, I think, not just in the state of California, but in the United States. So I just wanted to let you know that they're just fantastic. And I know that the mayor probably already talked about our Sacramento trip, but I have to give kudos to our mayor. And I have to give kudos to our assistant city manager, Ms. Crane, and our city manager, Ms. Summers. They did a fantastic job. We lobbied Kelly Ciarto, our senator. We lobbied Kate Sanchez, our assemblywoman. We met with the Traffic Budget Commission. And most importantly, we met with Caltrans. And I will tell you the tenacity that these three women had sitting at the table, that I really believe that we are going to get a lot back in grants and funding for infrastructure that's well-deserved for Murrieta. And with regards to my governing body announcements, you can review them on the website. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd just like to say thank you for being a secret fire shopper and making sure that our fire department is above board, doing a great job. So thanks for taking one for the team up here. So I'll defer my announcements till next meeting, but I will say that I had the pleasure of getting a phone call late from Chief Conrad and our city manager that it was of the utmost importance that I reach out to Congressman Darrell Issa. And I want to thank our Assistant City Manager, Kristen Crane, as well. So with the due in my crazy schedule, I finally did reach out. I did talk to the Chief of Staff. And then about 6 o'clock in the evening, Darrell Issa called me. So what that was we made it on an earmark. The city of Murrieta made it on an earmark for a $900,000 mobile command center. So we are hoping that this earmark will turn into a mobile command center for the city of Murrieta. But I was so excited to be able to talk with him, and he is ready to come back out and give a tour of the city of Murrieta, and was really very wonderful to work with, and we're really looking forward to getting a new mobile command center, because the one we have may need a tow truck to make it there. So that will be an amazing addition to our mobile command center. So I was just very honored to be able to talk with him, and I want to thank Chief Conrad as well, and our city manager, as well as our assistant city manager, for jumping on the boat, giving me so many amazing talking points, which weren't anywhere near when I needed to do the talking. So, but it did work out. So we're excited to be on that earmark. So that's all I have. And now we can move on to council member requests to add items to our future agendas. Anything? So something came up today, and I know that we've all been talking about this, and I know we've all had emails, but I would like to see if my fellow colleagues would like to join me in possibly requiring maybe a change in our development plan for restrooms in our larger parks. So if I had consensus with that, maybe we could get that brought back.
Yes?
Sure, yes.
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 Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sorry to give you more work, city staff, but I think that it would be fabulous for our community. So I guess without any further business and crickets from the dais, I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you so very much for all the reports, and all our city staff for being here for us today. Thank you.